I really wanted to give you an opportunity to understand what we see as kind of a new field here, which is evacuation management. Chief Cox spent some time talking about the setting that we were brought into last year, and the article that came out in San Jose Mercury News discussed a lot of the different technologies and the effort that went into creating this platform in the last couple of years. So ultimately, Chief Cox and his team were really the spiritual leaders of a lot of the efforts that we put forth here. So we're very happy to be here with you, Senator, and the rest of this esteemed team. So Chief Cox already mentioned the whole thing around drier, hotter, more fierce winds, et cetera. So I'm not going to talk much about the intensity of the fires, but what this has changed is the direction that people look during an actual event. So during some of these very large wildfires that are moving, as Chief Cox said, a football field a second, it's not something that we're going to be stopping or applying, being able to slow down. So what ends up happening is we have to look downhill and we have to see where the fire is going, and we need to be able to get people out of harm's way. And over the last 100 years, we've had a very consistent process that we've seen in evacuations. People show up after the fire has started. They pull out maps, as you can see in these bottom screens here, pull out Sharpies, get the teams together and start to do the planning. One of these pictures here is of the Kincaid fire a couple of years ago. They had 40 hours before a major wind event was coming, and they were able to use that 40 hours to evacuate over 200,000 people. And they did an amazing job. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is that the ability to, the time we have between the start of a fire and the need for an evacuation is drastically shorter. So our platform and technology is really about enabling the first responder community, the OES community, and the public to understand before an event happens what an evacuation could look like and how we need to get people out of harm's way. So we are the first evacuation management platform that integrates both a public side and a agency side. And the real goal for this application is to reduce the reflex time that it takes to call for an evacuation. So first responders can show up to a site, run a fire model, make a decision on whether or not they want to evacuate an area, understand the extent with which that evacuation will happen, meaning the number of structures, the number of people that are potentially in harm's way, and then be able to actually execute that evacuation. So some of the key tenets for this platform are reducing time, the reflex time, making it accessible to communities, integrating with existing channels, so integrating with tools like Technosova, Intera, integrating with the variety of notification systems. Key thing here is multi-agency coordination. The coordination happens well after the incident starts, but how can we help drive that coordination before the event happens with training and with collaboration? And then having real-time map-based information that's consumable both by the agencies and by the public. So if an evacuation status changes or a shelter gets open, that the public sees that immediately. And then everywhere we go, there's very hyper-local information, hyper-local knowledge, down to the level of, is there a gate at the end of that cul-de-sac? So with the mutual aid community coming to support people across these large incidents, we get people that don't know the local landscape. So how do we get that information into their hands? I'm going to show you something very quick here. It won't take too long. This is the CCU complex fire, and this is the evacuation that took place just over the first 36 days. And what's very interesting here is that within the first day, we had one zone that was under an evacuation order. And then on the 18th, there were 5 news releases that went out. And then on the 19th, the fire went crazy. And so within 5 days, we went from having one zone under an evacuation warning to a total of 134 zones across 3 counties. So up here is San Mateo, Santa Cruz, and Santa Clara County. But because we had a single system, all of the media, the public, and everyone was able to go find information in one single location. The other big learning we had here was that the evacuation itself took about 5 days, but the actual recovery or repopulation took over, it's still going on, so for several months. So I'm going to skip through these really quick and just show you. The last thing I wanted to bring up here was that we've recently been joined forces with a company called Genesis, and this has allowed us to start building out the vision of a fully integrated evacuation and warning system. So through Zonehaven, you're able to send out alerts through social media. You can get information out to Waze and a variety of other third parties, and directly into a variety of GIS applications and other tool sets. So it's a natural fit for us to join forces with Genesis, which has a full integrated software suite for notification and alerting, as well as a set of high-end acoustic devices, so notification systems. So now we're going to be able to directly address a variety of different notification systems and needs through this integrated solution. So I wanted to be quick here. I really feel that we've learned a lot with the community that's on this panel, and we're really looking forward to bringing more communities into this system. At this point, you can see in pink here, this is the areas that are in the process of or getting close to being on board with Zonehaven. You can go to community.zonehaven.com today and put in your address and look up your zone if you're in one of the communities that exists here today. So thank you again, Senator, for having us here.
Great, thank you. I'd like to bring Jessica and Jonathan back as well, and we'll have a little discussion before we'll talk to our next three presenters. And maybe I'll ask you for Charlie first. So how did you end up connecting with Jonathan and the county? What was that process like?
Well, yeah, Jonathan can get a little color here as well, but ultimately there are several really innovative leaders in the fire and law community, and they've been thinking about a lot of these problems and been able to get us some grants. And so we got a grant from the Moore Foundation a couple of years ago. We generated some sensors and we ran a few fires and built some applications, some demo fires in the East Bay. And through that, we got connected with Chief Cox. And Chief Cox took a flyer and said, hey, let's build out some zones. We really understand the problem. We just come off the Kincaid fire. And so we rolled up our sleeves and got working.
Great. Yeah, Jonathan, from your point of view.
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to that. You know, I think one of the kind of takeaways from the whole Zonehaven project was the fire chiefs in San Mateo County really came together after the campfire and said, how can we prepare for what might happen here locally? And really took on this idea of how do we reinvent preparing for evacuations. A couple of takeaways for me from the experience was, one, it was successful because every local police and fire agency in the county all bought into it early on. And B, we had a board of supervisor who was very supportive very early on to get this project off the ground. So, you know, I'm biased, but I do think this evacuation platform is really a good example of good government when government agencies work together to solve a problem. We found the right partner in Charlie and Zonehaven. And really they helped us identify what our problem was and kind of what the technological solutions that are available are.